You're about to sign the papers for the biggest house the bank approved you for. And in your head, this feels like victory, like progress, like the moment when you finally become a responsible adult. Warren would watch you sign those papers and know exactly what you just did. You just sold the next 30 years of your life. You just traded freedom for the illusion of success. And the worst part is that nobody told you there was another option. Today we're going to do something the entire financial industry would prefer you didn't do. We're going to calculate the real cost of buying the maximum house the bank approves you for, not the dollar cost of the mortgage. The cost in evaporated freedom, in decades converted into monthly payments that prevent you from building real wealth. Because Warren understands something the mortgage advisor will never tell you. There's a brutal difference between what you can technically afford and what you should strategically pay. And that difference is literally the distance between retiring a millionaire or working until your body gives out. Let's start with the lie everyone repeats. A mortgage is good debt. You're building equity. It's better than throwing money away on rent. All those phrases sound responsible. But Warren would look at them and say just one thing. Compared to what? Because here's the trick nobody mentions. Yes, technically you're building equity when you pay your mortgage, but you're destroying something much more valuable, your ability to invest. And the difference between those two numbers is devastating. Let's do the math the bank hopes you never do. Say you make $80,000 a year, close to the median American income. The bank tells you that you can spend up to 43% of your gross income on total debt. Sounds reasonable, right? It's the federal standard. 43% of $80,000 is $2,867 per month. The bank happily approves you for that level. A $400,000 house, maybe more. You sign the papers feeling successful. Now let me show you what Warren would see. $80,000 gross is approximately $58,000 net after taxes. $2,867 per month on housing means you're spending 59% of your net income on your house. Almost 60%. You have $2,000 left for absolutely everything else. Warren has a rule he's followed for 70 years. 25% of your gross income on housing. Not 30, not 43. 25. On $80,000, that's $1,667 per month. The difference between Warren's rule and the bank's approval, $1,200 monthly. Now here's where this gets brutal. Those $1,200 the bank tells you to spend on a bigger house don't disappear into thin air. They disappear from your ability to build real wealth. Because if you had those $1,200 free, you could invest them. Let's do that math right now. $1,200 per month invested in an S&P 500 index fund, which historically yields around 10% annually for 30 years. You know how much you have at the end? $2,200,000. Read that again. $2.2 million. The difference between buying the house the bank approves and the house Warren would approve isn't just extra square feet. It's literally $2 million of wealth you'll never build. I'm not exaggerating. Those are the real numbers when you let compound interest do its work. But you'll tell me, I'm also building equity in the bigger house. Correct. Let's make that comparison directly. In 30 years, if you bought that $450,000 house and paid it off, you have a house worth, being generous, $800,000. Congratulations. But the person who followed Warren's advice has a $250,000 house that's now worth $450,000 plus $2,200,000 in investments. Total, $2,650,000. The difference is $1,850,000. Warren has said it 1,000 times. Compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. But it only works if you actually have money to invest. And you don't have money to invest if it's all trapped in walls and ceilings. Let me introduce you to someone. We'll call him David. 32 years old, software engineer, makes $110,000 a year. He bought a $550,000 house with 10% down. The bank approved him without hesitation. His monthly payment is $3,600. David takes home approximately $75,000 after taxes. $3,600 per month is $43,200 per year. He's spending 57% of his net income on housing. He has $2,600 monthly left for 2 cars, gas, food, utilities, student loans, health insurance, everything. David saves nothing. Literally zero. He has no real emergency fund. And the worst part is that David thinks he's doing things correctly because all his colleagues live the same way. Warren would look at David and say, You're in the best position of your life to build massive wealth. You're 32 years old. You have a solid salary. You have 3 decades of compound interest ahead of you, and you're wasting it on granite. If David had bought a $300,000 house, his payment would be $2,000 monthly. That would leave him $1,600 per month to invest. In 30 years, David would have more than $3 million. But David chose the bigger house, and that set of choices just cost him literally $3 million in future wealth. Here's the truly insidious part of the system. The bank makes more money when they lend you more. The agent earns commission based on the sale price. The builder wants to maximize square footage. All the incentives point in the same direction. Maximize how much you spend. Nobody, literally nobody except you, has an incentive to minimize your housing cost. Warren understands incentives better than anyone, and in the housing market, they're completely aligned against you. That's why you need to be the only adult in the room doing the real math. Now let's talk about risk. When you maximize your mortgage, you're maximizing your vulnerability to everything that can go wrong. And Warren lives by a simple rule: never risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. When your housing consumes 60% of your net income, you're betting that everything will go perfectly for 30 years, that you'll never lose your job, that there will never be a recession, that the roof will never need replacement, that nothing will go wrong. That's not a smart bet. That's a desperate bet. And Warren never makes desperate bets. He calls this margin of safety. Let me show you what it looks like in real life. David loses his job. He has $4,000 in savings. His mortgage is due in 10 days, $3,600. Month 1, he can pay. He exhausts his savings. Month 2, he puts the mortgage on the credit card. Month 3, he gets a new job with $20,000 less salary. Now he's permanently squeezed, with growing debt, unable to recover. Compare that to someone who followed Warren's advice. Smaller house, $2,000 payment. They have 6 months of expenses saved. They lose their job. They have 6 months to find something new without panic. They don't accumulate debt. When they find work, they're fine. That's the difference between having a margin of safety and not having it. Warren has another perspective almost nobody considers: wealth accumulation speed. If you're investing $1,200 monthly, you reach $100,000 invested in 6 years. You reach $250,000 in 11 years, $500,000 in 16 years. Each milestone is a new level of security. But if you're spending everything on the maximum house, you don't reach $100,000 until 40. You don't reach $250,000 until almost 50. You've lost 2 decades of options, of flexibility, of freedom. And here's the cruel irony Warren would point out: the bigger house doesn't make you happier. Studies consistently show this. After 3 months in the new house, it's already your new normal. You no longer notice the granite. You only notice the payment that never goes away. But the peace of mind that comes from having growing investments, from having margin in your budget, that doesn't disappear. It deepens. It compounds just like your investments. Warren puts it this way: if you buy things you don't need, soon you'll have to sell things you do need. I've seen people sell their houses at a loss during crises. I've seen people liquidate their 401ks to pay mortgages. I've seen marriages collapse under financial stress. The house that was supposed to give you security becomes the source of your insecurity. Now, the argument that always comes up, but house prices always go up. This is perhaps the most dangerous thought in personal finance. First, they don't always go up. Ask anyone who bought in 2006. Second, even when they do go up, the average appreciation is 3 to 4% annually. That's way less than stock market returns. Third, your house's appreciation doesn't help you unless you sell it. It's trapped. You can't spend it. It doesn't generate passive income. The appreciation of your investments gets reinvested, compounds, is liquid if you need it. Warren prefers assets that generate cash flow, and your primary residence constantly consumes cash flow. Maintenance, taxes, insurance, repairs, everything comes out of your pocket always. Here's the real plan Warren would approve for you right now. Calculate 25% of your gross income. That's your absolute maximum for housing. Find housing within that limit. Maybe it's a smaller house. Maybe it's a less prestigious neighborhood. Maybe it's renting 2 more years. The difference between that 25% and what the bank would approve, invest it automatically every month. S&P 500 index fund, automatic contributions. Warren has explicitly said this is what the average investor should do: build 6 months of expenses in cash. Warren always maintains cash because he understands that liquidity is power when others are desperate. Avoid all consumer debt. No credit card balances. No 7-year car loans. Warren says, don't borrow money to consume, only borrow it to invest. Let me show you how this works at different income levels. $60,000 annually. 25% is $1,250 per month. You invest $1,000 monthly for 30 years. You end up with $1,800,000. $100,000 annually. 25% is $2,083 per month. You invest $1,500 monthly. In 30 years, $2,700,000. $150,000 annually. 25% is $3,125 per month. You invest $2,500 monthly. In 30 years, $4,500,000. The numbers work in every scenario. They always work. The only variable is whether you have the discipline to follow the plan when everyone does the opposite. And yes, it means living differently. It means your house will be smaller. It means giving up immediate social validation. But Warren would tell you that's exactly the price of freedom. Because freedom comes from making choices others aren't willing to make. It comes from optimizing for peace of mind instead of appearance. The housing decision you make will determine the trajectory of your entire life. If you buy the maximum house the bank approves, you just programmed 30 years of financial stress and the likelihood of working until 70. If you buy housing at 25% and invest the difference, you just programmed 30 years of growing margin and the likelihood of real financial independence. Same years, same amount of work. Completely opposite results. The only difference is a decision based on what the bank approves or what Warren would approve. Ask yourself, do you want to look successful now or be free later? Because in most cases, you can't have both. Looking successful requires maximizing visible expenses. Being free requires minimizing permanent obligations. Warren chose freedom, and that choice made him one of the richest men on the planet. Not because he found the secret investment, but because he understood that the power of compound interest only works if you have money to invest. And you only have money to invest if it's not all trapped in your house. The bank will never show you these numbers. Your agent will never make this comparison. Your friends will never admit they're trapped. It's just you, this information, and the most important decision of your financial life. When you're looking at listings tonight, when the bank tells you how much you're approved for, remember this math. Every extra dollar in mortgage is a dollar that will never become $100 of compounded wealth. And ask yourself which version of yourself in 20 years will be more grateful. The one who bought the big house and is still working? Or the one who bought the right house and has $2 million invested, giving them real freedom? Warren already knows the answer. The question is whether you have the courage to listen.